Hey, Composer Gloves here, and this is the 11th video in the Contact from the Ground Up tutorial series. And today we are going to talk about the concept behind the edit in the background of your instruments. So if we go into instrument edit mode, we have 5 tabs, and these 5 tabs comprise everything you really need to make an instrument, and they have these additional things down here. So first you need an idea for an instrument. So you say, oh, I want to make like a flute, or most people do like a guitar or piano, something easy when you start. That way you can get going. And then once you have that, well, you're going to want to put those samples into Kontakt. There's a variety of ways to do this. So you lay them down, and it's important when you're putting down samples that you look at what the root note is on the sample itself. Because if you have root note G#1, but the sample's playing like a C1, it's going to be pitched to be all funny and crazy. It's just going to be nuts. So you're going to need to make sure you know your stuff. And there's a lot of post work that goes into sampling. I'm going to cover getting your samples and stuff in a separate video, because that's something I really wish I'd known, and I was kind of left in the dark. Never really done much with microphones before then. Now I'm like doing tons with microphones, but before it was like black magic. So we're going to cover getting samples, but then you're going to want to edit them and make them a correct length, because it can get really tedious to have them incorrectly mapped. And then you can even name them specially so that you could just drag and drop, and they ideally should land right where they're supposed to. And my experience, I've always just put them on one by one. I find that when you do detail work like that, you get a lot more accuracy than having like something go wrong. I don't know, maybe the other way around. See, they have theirs properly tagged, and so you name it a specific way and it will automatically recognize your stuff. And so you've got your samples down, and as you push them, maybe you're going to get multiple groups of samples. You're going to get a choir singing long, and these samples are softer, and it will automatically play them softer or louder depending on how hard you hit the key or what MIDI information you give it. And then once you break a certain point, it goes into these samples, which are probably louder. And so you can see it go up, and that's like the loud part. If you didn't know, by the way, if you hit the outer edge of these keys, that's louder with your mouse. If you hit closer in, it's softer. And you can see it represented right here by this red line. And so that's a little bit about sampling. Now, you might want separate groups. And so you can go into this group editor, and you can go to choir group 2. And now this is a whole separate group you can have. And you can even create a new group. Create an empty group. And then bang, there's no samples here. And you could put in more samples, and then you could use those key switches we talked about earlier to switch between the groups, or you could use scripting to move between groups and data and things like that. So you can get, if you have a clear enough vision on what kind of samples you need to get, you could create a really convincing instrument just off the mapping editor alone. But it doesn't stop there. Well, the mapping editor and the group editor, we've already talked about scripting and how that could be used to put things together, but scripting can also be used to create interfaces, knobs, and keys. And you can even create your own custom backgrounds through the instrument options. And you need to set up a resource folder if you plan to give it to someone else. And that's where you'll put all your data, your samples and things. And we've talked about the save options. Well, now they start to become much more important when you want to save it so that other people can download it and use it. But you have your script editors, so you create some cool ways to interact with stuff. One of the coolest libraries I saw, it was just the coolest. Their mapping editor looked way funky though. It's on my other computer. It's this girl singing, and it sounds like when you hit keys and you glide from one key to the other, like it's called, legato playing. It sounds like she is singing that note. And I figured out what they did. They sampled her singing each note, and then you could set it up to loop so that and it's a really nice loop. Like you can't tell that you don't hear any clicks or pops or anything. Kontakt's great for that. But then they have another sample that when you glide, they've scripted in a legato mode to move into another group edit that they had down here that had her actually singing that glide and then loop through that note. So she had to sing every note individually. Then she had to sing from this note to this note and this note and this note and this note, and then she had to do that for the next one and every possible combination. And obviously her the range wasn't that big on the keyboard, but man, it sounded really solid. Like I was totally floored by that idea. It was so cool. But anyways, by the way, these blue keys map out the range. And you can send all sorts of data for keys to trigger. So it doesn't have to be just change group, change that, because your scripting gives you like virtually unlimited options. And there's ways to use the script editor without really even knowing coding. If you know just a few tricks and tips, you can get away with doing quite a bit. But after that, you can send it through effects and things, curves. As you can see, they have quite a bit going on here. And you can edit your samples. Once you have your samples into, you're going to want to probably edit them. So you go to your wave edit and you can select the sample you want to work on. And you can see they only have part of their sample selected. That's part of the genius of Kontakt, is being able to set that up so that it will loop through your instruments. And we're going to cover all these things in greater detail, but I just want to give you an idea, like stand back and look at the valley of beautifulness you have before you. Like, you really have some incredible tools available to you that you can do a lot. Honestly, this is a really amazing library. So after you go through your effects, you do all sorts of envelopes, modulations. You can just do pretty much anything you really want to do. And then you can save it and give it to someone else to like use, or you could use it in your own, well, ideally you use it in your own productions as well. And it's just a really cool tool. Quick note about the mapping editor. You can stretch samples out. So you see our keyboard range just got big. Oh, these are the soft samples too. So let's do this. But as you see, it doesn't really sound that realistic. But if you want to, you can get away with lesser samples, and that could sound really cool. And they have time stretching options down here, different ways. DFD stands for direct from disk. We'll talk about this stuff later, but it's just really neat and nifty. So I hope you understood that. I hope you've got a vision and are excited to make instruments and do this. Recording the process and editing the samples can be tedious, but it's so satisfying when you put all your samples in and you just start playing, and it's just great. And there's lots of sample scripters out there who their scripts are free. They have presets here that you can use. Like I said, if you've got a vision clear enough, you'll be able to figure it out. You may get stumped by lack of programming knowledge. That was a big problem I had at the beginning. And then I got the crazy idea that I wanted to make VSTs, and it just got bad. So yeah, if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. Like, comment, and subscribe. I hope you're excited to learn this stuff, and have a blessed day.